Hey, this is John, Becky, and Will from Stub Group here to talk today about the state of Google Ads support. This is a hot topic right now because Google continues to lay people off across a variety of departments within Google, including on the support side of things. They just came out with some more layoffs in what they call the LCS, or Large Customer Sales Division, and they keep, moving towards AI, moving around how they provide support to advertisers. There was also a big article that came out recently about basically everybody in the agency world and the advertising world complaining that they can't get answers and help from Google. And so I figured, hey, let's sit down and kind of share what we're seeing right now as both an agency and also what we're hearing from leads who reach out to us and from our advertisers who sometimes work directly with Google, and talk about kind of what the state of Google Ad support looks like. Becky, you want to maybe kick things off? You're talking to lots of leads reaching out who are interested in working with us. What are you hearing or dealing with on those conversations?
Yeah, everyone knows we work in the compliance space, right? So I'm used to talking to a lot of people who can't get in touch with the right people at Google to help them. That's not something that is new per se. We're always hearing, I've reached out 1,000 times, I'm getting templated emails and things like that. But I will say over the last month, really the beginning of 2024 so far, we're seeing that complaint more substantial across other types of situations on Google, not just compliance issues. We're seeing people who feel like their ads are tanking and they're reaching out to their Google rep or Google support for help and they're not getting answers. We're seeing a lot of people who qualify for certification or advanced verification across their particular vertical, such as a locksmith or in cryptocurrency, for example. And they meet all the standards that Google has, and they're struggling to sufficiently pass verification. And they're reaching out to Google for answers, and they're not getting it. And they're increasingly becoming more and more frustrated. I even had one lead that I met with last week that was very convinced that they had been communicating with a Google rep and talking to that rep on their ads platform, chatting with them, until another person on their team actually during our call pointed out that it was actually barred. And they thought that they had been talking to a real person the whole time, and it wasn't. It was AI. So that at that point made that person even more frustrated with their situation, because they were fully convinced, hey, I've got somebody here finally, and look, they're telling me this. Why are you telling me something different? And the other person on their team was like, no, that's not a person. So yes, there's a significant amount of frustration, especially when people want to spend money on Google and they feel like they can't. And these many times brick and mortar, 20 plus years in business companies are tanking because they cannot advertise online, and they're frustrated and they're scared and they don't know what to do. And, we kind of serve as a mediator there as an agency that deals with a lot of these issues. And, we see it with these leads that are coming in, but we also see it a lot with our clients. And we see Google support react in many different ways across the board. So it's definitely something that's a little bit more present in the first month of 2024. And it'll be interesting to see what happens as the layoffs and things like that do continue to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's consistent with what I'm seeing as well. I think sometimes the way I describe how we're able to help in those types of situations as an agency is sometimes it is we can escalate things, further than just a normal advertiser can. Sometimes it's not even that, though. Sometimes it's like Google doesn't know the answer to the question because their training is so bad, or because you can't get to the right people. And so sometimes it's like we actually know the answer, or we know how to structure things because we've had to do it, figure it out the hard way, and Google literally won't tell you. So those are, I think, kind of the two categories of areas that I see our team being able to help people reaching out to us and trying to solve some of these problems when Google themselves are not solving such problems. Will, how about you? What types of things are you seeing on your side?
So recently we've had some additional opportunities to bring in advanced Google reps and support into the conversation to talk big picture strategy, making sure we're leveraging beta opportunities or different programs that Google may be testing and wants to bring the client into the conversation. But it's always important to remember that the Google reps goals in those conversations doesn't necessarily line up with what your goals are as a business owner. So recently had a conversation with all three of us, me, the client, and the Google rep, and the Google rep's like, hey, performance looking good. You need to ramp up budget significantly, X amount of dollars, and continue to capture that impression share and converting at a high level. Because of the timing of this conversation going into Christmas and the lull that we often see for certain verticals after the holidays, I communicated to the client, hey, happy to proceed how you want, but based on the goals you've communicated to us and the return on ad spend that you need to be seeing, if we increase to this level, you are going to see a dip in performance. You're not going to hit the goals related to profitability and ROAS. If we do this, you're going to see more traffic probably. But based on the goals that we've discussed, it's going to change. And so, within the weeks that followed, that client followed up. It's like, hey, what went on with performance? Why are we seeing ROAS dip? And I was like, able to go back to that conversation. And so just as a reminder, there's often things that you can leverage in that relationship with advanced Google support and different opportunities in those conversations. But just remember to take those recommendations with a grain of salt and make sure they align with what you're wanting to see happen as a business.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. And I've seen some similar things too on my end, some of the conversations I've had with clients and with Google's accelerated growth team. I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, one of our clients reached out to us and said, hey, we got contacted directly by someone from Google's growth team, and here's a series of recommendations that they made. Essentially, what do you think? Should we do these? Should we not? And so I was able to just walk them through, and the recommendations in and of themselves, they're not bad. They're growth oriented. There's, okay, how do we grow traffic? How do we grow spend from Google's perspective? And so I was able to kind of give them the guidance and say, if your goal is to get more traffic and potentially get more sales as well, hopefully these are in line with that, but you're going to see your ROAS come down because here's why. And so, like you said, Will, you've got to not just take their recommendations and say life will be good, but you've got to measure those against what are your goals, what are your margins, what's your ROAS at currently, how much margin do you have in that to see that come down in exchange for increased volume of orders and so forth. I know you'd mentioned to me something else about one of our other clients, Will, who we're dealing with some disapproved or limited ads and trying to navigate things with them. Could you share more about what our experience has been and with Google support there and clients' expectations of what that means with the rep that they've been working with?
So in this situation, there's ads that have been disapproved in the past. There's ads that are running, but they're running to a limited audience. And that's been very frustrating for the client. And because of those frustrations, when we've had different conversations with a Google rep, they want to latch onto that and see that as a lifeline, a path to getting all their problems solved. But the problem is, depending on who you're communicating with, and in most situations, the reps that are reaching out to business owners and advertisers, is they don't have the expertise or even the ability to address some of these concerns. And so it causes additional frustration when you're working with a business or you're working with a rep and they're supposed to have the answers. You are Google, you are the platform representative, and still feel like you're hitting things against a wall. So as you mentioned previously, a lot of the reasons why we're able to come up with successful solutions isn't necessarily because a rep told us this or that, but because we've tested a lot of different things over the years and are able to find successful paths forward that may not even align with what you hear from certain reps that are communicating to you from Google, because they may not have the training necessary to solve your problem.
Yeah, I have to reiterate that a lot across the boards whenever we're working with clients in the suspension space, because people don't realize that Google is not set up like a regular company, and there isn't communication from the person who is assigned to you on the growth team and the person that's assigned to your suspension or to your disapprovals or to your Google My Business page or to your payment profile. It's all completely different departments at Google, and the one department can't see what's happening in another. They don't pay attention across the boards. And so, sometimes when we're resolving problems like for advertiser verification, that process takes a lot longer if we have to change the payment profile settings for some reason, and we have to go through that department, because we have to take that step first before we can even try to go to the suspension team and get that account unsuspended. There just isn't that communication throughout department to department in order for businesses to have this like really beautiful profile in front of whatever Google person is looking at their ad account in particular.
To that point specifically, we've got a local business owner that we're working with that it's one issue, but it's an issue that crosses his local service ads, his Google My Business account, and his standard Google Ads account. And like Becky, like you just mentioned, you would think that, oh, this is Google, they pull up your information, they're help. But no, when we're talking to someone from local service ads, they have to get special permission in order to make changes or adjust things on their side that are then going to impact things on the Google business profile side or the Google Ads side. And so you're not working with one person that can help address an issue or a setting that needs to be changed. You have to go through each of those different ones, and they don't always align. And there are issues that you have to resolve there, oftentimes with an extreme level of creativity to get to the end goal. Yeah. So yeah, it is a very interesting situation that you can find yourself in.
Yeah, creativity, the name of the game. I think it's important too to say we're not bashing the people who work at Google. There's a lot of really good people who work at Google. The reps most people are speaking with, they genuinely want you to be successful. They're not trying to be malicious or anything, but they're only as good as the training they have and the processes they're allowed to follow internally. So it's not that the person that you're speaking to at Google wants your business to fail. It's just that there's only certain things they're allowed to do or have been trained how to do. And so that's where, we often find ourselves kind of stepping in and trying to help guide our clients to say, well, hey, we actually know more than this Google rep because we had to solve this last week. So here's what we need to do, or here's what you need to tell them to do so that they can go through their documentation and realize it's possible, that kind of thing. And so we're kind of guides along the way, is how I view it sometimes in the complicated world that is Google Ads these days. Thanks for watching. Hope some of those thoughts were helpful. If you are dealing with any of these frustrations we talked about right now, trying to get answers you can't get or receiving problematic recommendations, whatever the case may be, we'd love to be that guide to you. Reach out through stepgroup.com. Let's talk about what's going on and see how we can help. And until next time, John, Becky, Will, signing off.